Your Grace.
It will probably take place on the 27th of December, but we have to work it out. Yet it may come forward a little bit, but it would be around that time.
Bishop Gordon, Archbishop. Archbishop Harris mentioned that you are aware of some of the problems facing the Archdiocese and what it needs. Could you expand on that? What are the problems and the solutions?
The two big challenges facing the church today are first to help its people to grow a depth of faith where people will be confident to give themselves to God with generosity. And without that deepening discipleship, what the Holy Father calls missionary discipleship, without helping people to come to that missionary discipleship, we can't face the second challenge, which is the turbulence in this nation, with the high crime, with high levels of corruption, with the high levels of discord that we see in the national arena. Transformation of a country is transformation of the world is the job of the laity. And they are to be in the world a leaven that brings the gospel message to every sector of society. And to help people to come to that place where they can and where they have that depth of faith and courage, so that they can bring that gospel witness into all sectors of society, I think is one of the great challenges that we face. And so Jesus, when asked, well, what is the greatest commandment? He said, well, it is this: love God with everything and love your neighbor as yourself. And so the greatest challenge is to help our people to love God with everything so we can love our neighbor as ourselves and build a civilization of love here in this nation.
So, do you think the Catholic Church is doing enough to spread that message in order to do its part to perhaps reduce the crime level in this country?
So I have been out of Trinidad for 6 years, and my habit is when I leave, I leave. So I really haven't kept up with what is happening with Trinidad in any intimate way. I would read bits and pieces, hear bits and pieces. So I'm unqualified to answer that. Maybe the Archbishop is better qualified to answer that.
He's a smart man. You can always do more. But given the tools and the resources that we have, I think we have been doing the best that we can at this moment. The big problem for me of crime is the problem of education. That we have an education system which produces failures very often. And we have an education system which, over the years, has come down with various slogans: no child must be left behind, etc. But all those things have put children into situations they can't handle. If you cannot handle a primary school syllabus and end up with 30% in an SEA exam, how are you going to handle a secondary school system? Impossible. But we continue to spawn these no child will be left behind and that kind of, which doesn't help. And until our education system starts taking into account learning styles and aptitudes, I think our crime situation is going to continue escalating. It won't.
What about the violence in schools?
That is part of the problem. if you are not at home in your own skin, a lot of things happen. And children are not at home in their own skins. If you're failing every exam, how do you feel?
But Archbishop, respectfully, these children must also be held accountable as well for perpetuating that level of violence, bullying, beatings.
We have to be held accountable because we accept an education system which is not doing what it should be doing. We have to be held accountable. Society.
What's on the agenda for you following your retirement?
Well, I going to get a good rest. 6 years as Archbishop of Port of Spain can take its toll on an old man. So I'm going to get a good rest. And then I'm going to go and plant peas, perhaps not in Tobago, but I'm going to plant peas somewhere.
You have a baseman in your head.
What's the first thing on your agenda as new Archbishop?
To get to know this country again, to get to know this church again, to listen as deeply as I can to all sectors of society and church, and to try and understand what's the thing that is ticking deep in the unconscious of our people that connects with the gospel message, so that I can start building bridges for people between the existential itch, this thing inside that is asking our society to move forward, and the call of the gospel to be salt and light in our world.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I think you did some work up in Gonzales,
That's correct.
area.
Yes.
A while ago. So is that part of your plan to go out into these perceived hotspot communities and perhaps change the whole mindset, culture, turn around communities?
Working with challenged communities is one of the things that I have done, continue to do, and it certainly will be part of what would be on my agenda going forward. Because unless we can find ways to bring growth, development to the most difficult communities we have, then we as church are not doing what we are supposed to be doing.
Is sport going to be an integral part in your in doing Catholics? The Catholic Church is going to reduce crime?
When I was in Gonzales, I was given the Chapman Award for using sport for building peace in Gonzales. And sport is always going to be on the agenda because that's where our young people are at. And as a vehicle for building peace, most definitely. In Gonzales, I use sport, drama, video, photography, dance, anything. But yes, sport is a very big and important part of our national psyche. And it is really a great bridge to development, to discipline, and therefore to building peace.
Bishop, what is going to happen in the interim between now and upon installation? How are you planning to juggle those responsibilities as Archbishop-elect of Port of Spain and administrative families?
The church has a wonderful wisdom, having been around for 2,000 years. It kind of understands how these things work and work well. So Archbishop Harris remains administrator of the Archdiocese of Port of Spain and takes all the responsibilities up until the installation. I remain administrator of the Diocese of Bridgetown and take all the administration responsibilities there. On the day of the installation, I take responsibility for the Archdiocese of Port of Spain, and I'll still be the administrator for the Diocese of Bridgetown. So I put things in place in Bridgetown so that they will continue along without too much trepidation or too much neglect, and take up my substantive post here while still having oversight and working with the people of Barbados to ensure that that church continues growing, developing, and doing what it should do.
Since the announcements, what has been the reaction like from the faithful and families?
As we're sitting here in the in this conference, my phone has buzzed every 3 seconds. There's been a lot of outpouring of congratulations, of joy, and of course the people in Barbados, what's going to happen with us? Because I've had 6 years in Barbados. The first 4.5 years were between Barbados and St. Vincent. And there were years where every 10 days I was on a plane to ensure that each diocese received adequate provision every month for moving itself forward. So the people of Barbados are accustomed to me in and out. For the last 1.5 years, I have been in Barbados, and it has been a welcome joy not to have to be doing the travel. So the next phase, I will be doing travel, and they know that I have been able to do 2 dioceses at the same time. This is different because this one is so much bigger, with so much more to understand, to learn, and to be involved in. But there's been both joy, and there's also been a grieving and a sorrow that, I will not be there anymore. So this is part of our life. We go wherever the Holy Father pleases to send us.
We have a few questions via Facebook.
Yeah.
One of the questions is, what plans are being made for encouraging the youth to stay in church and practicing the Catholic faith? Do you have anything in mind, or are you just going to go through the lay of the land and understand before you can conceptualize any ideas?
So already in my first remarks, I addressed that, but from a helicopter level, 10,000 feet up above the air. But deep dive into that, young people stay in church when they are connected to Christ. Young people stay in church when they feel the church meaningful. And so we have to find a way to present the faith to this new generation in a way that is accessible, and in a way that we don't change the age-old message, but we certainly change the delivery modes, and we certainly change by giving more bite-sized content, and we certainly change by showing the relevance of the gospel for this generation today. So the days where young people took their news from newspapers, for instance, or television studios, that those days are gone. You're doing a Facebook Live. You already have young people asking questions. That's what we have to do. Participatory, interactive engagement, helping people understand the relevance of the gospel for what we're living today.
Another question is, with the launch of digital media, can you see all parishes in this archdiocese entering that era?
That would certainly be my hope and my joy. For the last 20-something years, I've been principal of the Catholic School of Caribbean Communications. And that school exactly is about that task, helping people understand the digital milieu and helping people to understand how we present faith in this digital milieu. The bishops of the region have issued a pastoral letter very recently, and that pastoral letter is titled Being a New Church in the Digital Milieu, and it's precisely on that topic. And that will be a major plank of any ministry that I will be involved in.
That's it from online for now.
Thank you very much for the questions. Lovely to have participation, isn't it?
Archbishop Harris, is there any words of advice you have given to the Archbishop-elect taking on this diocese?
That I have given to him?
Yes.
No, not yet. Huh? Well, we are brother bishops, so if the need arises, you get some brotherly advice.
Bishop, we got another question from live. I'm Father Jerry from Guyana. Congratulations to Bishop Gordon. Question: would you be strengthening relationships with Guyana, especially through the media?
Hi, Guyana. Good to have you in this interview, in this press conference. Guyana is one of the dioceses that is part of the Metropolitan See of Port of Spain. And in that sense, strengthening all of our dioceses and the Metropolitan of Port of Spain, the province of Port of Spain, is a very important job for any archbishop. And so we will use every tool that we can to try and strengthen relationships and build communion at the level of the province. We already have in Port of Spain a meeting of the priests of the province once a year, and that is something that has started in the last few years under the leadership of Archbishop Harris. It wasn't happening before, and is one of the legacies that he has left, and is one of the things I would certainly want to build upon.
Archbishop-elect, what were your thoughts and feelings when you heard of the request or desire for Francis?
You sure you want to know? Trepidation. The Archdiocese of Port of Spain is a major see in our English-speaking conference. Martinique would be the major see in the French speakers. And Port of Spain has more talent available than any of the other dioceses or archdioceses in the English-speaking Caribbean. And it is really a flagship in so many ways, with so much already working so well, so much potential, and yet it's, as Trinidad is, so much incredible challenge and joy at the same time. To be Archbishop of Port of Spain, as Archbishop Harris alluded a short while ago, 6 years of it could wear down an old man. 6 years of it could wear down a young man. and I don't know that the wearing down is so much of age as of the complexity of the Archdiocese, of the turbulent nature of Trinidad society, of this joy of life that we have on the one hand, and yet the challenge to harness potential and really create a movement for good and a movement for change and a movement for building a better world, a better society, a better church. If you look at the challenge of crime as just one example in the history of Trinidad and Tobago, there were moments when it seemed possible to bring the crime challenge under a different level of control. There were moments when that was so. And then the explosion of crime after that says, well, that was a great moment, and here we have another one. And that's the volatile nature of Trinidad society. It's an incredible society. It's dynamic. It has energy. It has passion. It has a sense of life second to none. But all of these great characteristics of Trinidad society also leads it to be a society where harnessing, holding unity, and creating a movement for positive transformation is also a very difficult and challenging thing. And so trepidation, because the task of being Archbishop of Port of Spain is a very serious responsibility, but then a sense of peace, because I know that it is God who is asking me to do this. The Holy Father has, as God's representative here on earth, has asked, and I will do everything I can to bring my heart my life to the challenge before me in this new responsibility that the church has asked of me.
Another question from the live. Would the Catholic Church be more vociferous with regards to social and moral issues in the country?
I'm not sure about the word more, but we have a long tradition of Catholic social teaching. For 120 years, 118 years, the church has spoken very clearly through a tradition of letters from the Pope on the social issues of the day. The church's role is not to make a comment on every fad or every occurrence of everything that is happening. The church's role is to be a voice of reason and a voice of vision of where society can and ought to go. And in that sense, we have an incredible wealth of tradition as church that we offer. And I've seen many statements that Archbishop Harris has made on the social issues of Trinidad and Tobago under his 6 years as Archbishop that have spoken to the heart of the issue. The more vociferous connotates that we will be jumping into every talk show. And that's not the role of the church. Being a leading light, giving a voice of reason, being a moral compass, helping people to understand where true north really is, now that's the role of the church. And so I don't know if I've answered your question, but that's the best I could do.
Port Spain is the seat of the Caribbean Catholic Church. How will we promote vocations as a priority for our region?
Promoting vocations is one of the things I have made a hallmark of my episcopacy. In Barbados, the last Barbadian to be ordained for the diocesan priesthood is now ordained 41 years. Okay, the last Barbadian for the diocesan priesthood. In the last 6 years since I've been bishop, we have 3 men studying for the priesthood. And that's because I made that a very clear responsibility, mandate, and priority for myself, to prepare the next generation of priests for Barbados. I spend a lot of time working with young people who have vocations and young people who are thinking. But the challenge of vocations is deeper than that. We want to pick the fruit, but we don't want to plant the tree. My approach is going to be, yes, whatever fruit is available, we will pick. But I really want to start planting new seeds for vocation and planting a tree that will bear fruit in 5, 10, 25, 50 years' time. And that goes back to the first thing that I said of finding the way to bring the message of the gospel into an animating force for change in the lives of people. Because if we have people who are connecting with the gospel message deeply in their lives and seeing themselves as disciples and putting God first in everything, vocations are going to flow. And when I say vocations in this sense, I'm not talking about priests, nuns, consecrated lay people, religious. I'm talking about married people. That's a vocation. I'm talking about media people. Media is a vocation. We could do media as a job and create ferment in society, or we could do media as a vocation and bring peace, harmony, and love to society. I'm talking about teaching as a vocation. I'm talking about being a doctor as a vocation, being a cleaner or helper as a vocation. How do we help all of our people see their lives as a response to God and God's call in their life? If we have that culture of vocations flourishing, then we will have the priests and nuns, the religious we would need, but we would have the Catholic families that we would need. And then we would have a whole new generation of people growing up in families where vocation is at the heart of their thinking, and therefore as a response to God and their life. Thank you.
About the vocation, there's a view that more priests should be encouraged to join the Catholic faith. And
Yes, anything that you can do to help us with that, we'd be very happy. Of course.
I've seen, you know, in the churches, these singers, somebody's son's a priest, you want your son to be a priest.
Correct, yeah. We have to put the idea of offering ourselves to God squarely on the agenda of every Catholic. And to go back to what I said, you know, the problem with vocation to the priesthood, religious life, lay consecrated life, is not a problem with vocation in that sense. It's a problem with vocation in the deeper sense that if Catholics generally are not seeing themselves as offering themselves generously to God, then it will be reflected in the shortage of priests, nuns, lay consecrated. That's a symptom. That's not where the ailment is. And to try to address the symptom is to keep putting a bandage on a sore as opposed to going to the root and start understanding that we have to find new ways to proclaim the gospel for this generation so that everyone experiences themselves answering the call of God in their life, in the concrete realities of their life.